Hey, every pony, what's going on?
Tails here,
JTH.
and this is part
3 of Silent Ponyville. In the last part, Gummy frickin' died.
Yeah,
That was tragic.
I cried many tears.
After we went off the air, probably more than likely.
Yeah. Well,
but anyways, here we go. Part 3 of Silent Ponyville. Pretty interesting so far.
Let's do it.
For a Grimdark, this is pretty interesting.
Warning, Grimdark. Reader discretion is advised. Chapter 3. Pinkie Pie tenderly finished cleaning and wrapping her wounds. Her legs still throbbed from the bite wound, but at least now it would start to heal properly. She tested her weight on it. There was a small bit of pain, but nothing she couldn't handle. She could keep moving. She could run away if she had to. She looked at the note she had placed on her bed once more. It had been resting at the bottom of the balloons basket, as if it had been waiting for her to find it. Laughter and smiles of youth, together as they found out truth.
Laughter and
Dreams of the
smiles
future
of
are
youth.
held,
I'm trying to figure
as
this riddle out.
fears of the past are expelled.
Past.
She had been dwelling on this note since she found it.
and
She knew it was
smiles
a
of
riddle.
youth.
She wasn't very good with riddles, but her mind had finally calmed down enough to now to start thinking more coherently. Her brain was finally not reeling from horror long enough to take deciphering these words seriously. Well, I guess the first line means foals. Foals finding truth? Like learning? That word sparked before her. Oh, this riddle is about a school, she said, rereading the riddle in context of a school and all lines.
See, I got the children part, but I didn't get the school part.
Yeah.
She said, rereading the riddle in context of a school, and it seemed as if all the lines fit. So, does that mean I can head for the school? She asked herself. She looked around at the dilapidated room. The balloon was torn apart, the body of half a filly. No reason to stay here, she sighed as she packed the note into her bag before grabbing the lantern and heading outside. She shivered as she hit the cold, snowy air once more. She hadn't realized how warm it was being inside of buildings. She turned the lantern off and placed it back in the bag. She then began her gallop towards the school. She watched carefully from behind a tree as the lumbering form of the monster paced away from the entrance to the school. It looked like the first monster she had encountered, a three-legged groaner.
Groaner.
If there's more of those things,
Thought it was a howler.
That's
maybe
what I thought
groaner
at
is a good
first,
thing
but I
to
must
call
have got it
them,
wrong.
she thought to herself. She had hoped the buzzing of her phonograph wouldn't give her position away, but it didn't seem to notice any sounds unless she made them. It soon began to lumber away into the fog, turning into a dark silhouette of itself. She figured now was the perfect time to move. She quickly made it to the front door of the school and pulled on the handle, trying to get inside quickly. The door jammed from the sound of it being locked. What? It's locked? She said, bewildered. She hadn't expected it to be locked, not after that riddle had told her to
the key.
I get the answer wrong? She asked herself as she looked at the door again. It was then that she noticed just above the handle was the lock, with the symbol of a star on it.
A key.
It felt like a switch was flipped in her head. She quickly reached into her bag and pulled out the key Gummy had left for her, being careful not to undo the ribbon. She placed the key into the keyhole. It fitting perfectly. The door unlocked with a satisfying click that made her smile softly. She went to grab the key and hold on to it again.
Should have squeaked there.
The key turned to ash, the tiny pieces quickly falling to the ground.
I guess she didn't need it anymore.
She stared in shock at the gift Gummy had given her. The only part that hadn't turned into ash was the ribbon that floated down gently, landing on her outstretched hoof. Oh, Gummy's gift, she said, her lip quivering as tears threatened to fall once more. She shook her head quickly, taking a deep breath of cold air. She calmed herself again. She'd already cried a lot. If she kept crying, she wasn't going to get out of the situation anytime soon.
Yeah.
Besides, she still had the ribbon for the key. She very carefully tied the bow to the end of her mane. It still didn't have its frizz to it, but tying it to the end helped make her feel like it was a little poofy again. The ribbon gave her comfort. She felt as if Gummy were right there beside her while she was wearing it. She opened the school door and headed inside. To her surprise, the area was fairly well lit. She had been expecting to need her lantern like at her house. The school seemed to have fared better than her house did. It had a thick layer of dust, but the structure wasn't nearly in as much disrepair. Lockers lined the walls as the hallways led to classrooms. Before her, an opening in the led to the main auditorium. Signs hung on the wall pointing out the direction of the
one-room
gym,
schoolhouse.
nurse's office, the principal's office,
Unless it's a
and
different
the numbers
school.
of the classrooms. Huh? She said as her ear twitched upon hearing a sound. It sounded like the laughter of young foals. She turned her head in the direction of the sound, simply amazed at the sight. She could see the ghostly apparitions of 2 young foals playing in the hallway. They laughed and pranced around each other before running down the hallway in the direction of a classroom.
Huh.
Pinky watched as they faded through the door to the classroom. She quickly turned her head to her bag and listened for the static of her phonograph. But it was silent. Well, maybe those ghosts aren't like the others, she said quietly to herself. Perhaps if they weren't monsters, they were maybe a sign. She quickly followed after the foals, opening the door to classroom 104.
You don't might make this journey a bit
The
easier.
classroom was as quiet as the
This
halls
thing.
of the school. Stagnant air mixed with
Sonic.
a layer of dust.
Yeah.
But the room gave Pinky a
Just
sense
pointing
of
at a ghost and
nostalgia. It was the classroom
Sonic
she
don't
had
kill.
gone to when she had moved to
will
Ponyville.
scare them away.
Memories began to flood her mind.
You know what would be good for me in this
Well,
position?
Miss Pinkamena
A
Diana
shotgun.
Pie, we
Figured.
recognize that you have been homeschooled for most of your life, but upon testing you on the Ponyville standardized test, your score was not high enough to acknowledge the Your score was not high enough to acknowledge a graduate level pony. So we are requiring you to take the test 1 year of public school here in Ponyville. The mayor explained to her. What? I have to go to school? Pinky said, pouting in her seat opposite to the mayor's desk. But learning was so boring. She stopped her hooves a little in her chair. Now, sis, Octavia said, reaching over and placing a hoof on her sister's shoulder. Oh, how am I supposed to know what Octavia sounds like? She never talks.
Yeah.
It won't be that bad. Just think of all the new friends you'll be able to make. You'll have a lot more ponies to invite to your parties, she said comfortingly. But
Did you ever see
But-
the
Pinky
fanfic
said, looking at her
Liquid Rainbows
sister's
wrote with
bleeding eyes.
Octavia in it?
she already
No, I
knew that
never
she
read
wanted
it.
to
I've seen it,
spread
but I haven't
smiles
read
as
it.
much as
It's
their
called
cars
The Show
could.
Goes On. I'll
But
just
this
show
was
it
her
to you.
first time finding other
I read it.
ponies
It's
to be
pretty
friends
good,
with at the
actually.
party for. She was rather intimidated by the thought that they wouldn't like her party.
No, his pony
Tell you
Yu-Gi-Oh
what,
cards.
Octavia
Yeah,
said
I'm looking
with a
for
comforting
something.
smile.
Awesomeness.
It's all right with the mayor. I'll go to school with you. How does that sound? I
Yay.
don't see why not, the mayor said, nodding with a smile. Really? Oh my gosh, you're the best big
Yeah,
sister
an Octavia
ever,
card.
Pinky said, hugging her dear sister with all her might.
Daw!
With a great smile on her face. Octavia
Daw!
smiled in return as she petted her young filly sister. Pinky smiled at the warm memory. It was one she hadn't thought about in a long time. When Pinky had
My most
decided to
powerful
leave
card.
the farm, Octavia
Nightmare
was
Moon.
the one who had
She's
been
awesome.
who had been
And she's badass. In a good way.
When Pinky had decided to leave the farm, Octavia was the one who had been the one willing to help her adjust to life
Can I show them
outside
my
of it.
favorite?
Her parents seemed to
Now, let me
understand
see.
and stayed behind to
Where
let their
would
kids
that be?
experience the world. Octavia had been the biggest help to her while they were at school. She gave her the confidence boost to meet the new ponies, and she made so many
Final
friends.
scratch.
Final
She was
Scratch,
also the reason
she's
she
awesome.
meet Mr. and Mrs.
And
Cakes
I do
and
have
ended up
one
staying with them.
card
It
that
was after that year
no,
of
no
school
one,
that
no
Octavia
other
decided
card
to
can
leave on her
defeat.
own adventures, having discovered her love of the
Ready? One.
contraband.
2,
and the
3.
local-
The great and powerful Trixie!
You can't even see it, but it's Trixie.
It's Trixie.
She'd
I
been
love
sad
Trixie,
to see
she's
her sister
awesome.
go, but understood she had to live in her own world.
Trixie's
No one. I have a
Besides,
Trixie
she
card.
left
I win
her
by
in
default.
care for some
Yeah.
very wonderful
I have a
friends.
Trixie launcher, I
Pinky
win by
walked down the
default.
rows of a desk with
Don't
a
forget,
soft
my
little
Sonic's
smile
blue
on
just
her
like her, I win by default
The room
again.
certainly gave her plenty of happy memories to remember. She stopped before her old desk in remembrance, but noticed a piece of paper lying on top of this. What's this? She
There's
asked
Sonic.
before taking a quick breath and blowing the dust off of the paper.
A Sonic
Sitting on her desk was a
probe.
little foal's drawing.
That's
On it was a
Screwdriver.
picture of a family smiling on a rock farm. She gently placed a hoof against it. It was one of her old drawings. She smiled as she remembered the fondness she had for doodling during class.
Yeah.
She could see their old house in the background, her mother and father standing behind their kids in the foreground. She smiled at the cute scribbling of her and Octavia.
Yeah.
Wait, she said, suddenly realizing something. She took her hoof away from the picture and stared at it. Something was wrong with this picture. She couldn't put her hoof on it, though. It's my family. Don't give me the impression that something's wrong. She stared at the happy family of 4. She couldn't fight the strong urge that there was something wrong with the picture, but no matter how long she racked her brain, nothing seemed to come to mind. She scrutinized the picture carefully. Sure, if Octavia was here, she'd know what the problem was. Pinky shook her head
She's a
softly.
family of 4,
She
right?
always wasn't
Yeah.
the smartest of us.
Doesn't she have 2
She always
sisters?
was the smartest.
I don't know.
If she were ever in trouble, she would always bail us out. Her words stopped dead. All right, fine. I'll play with you, but only because you're so insistent. Her eyes shot back to the paper as she scanned it, and counted the number of people in her family once more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I knew it.
She said it out loud as she pointed to an empty spot that should have contained her other sister. Where's Bellamina, who has an oddly masculine voice? sister. She scoured the page for any
I knew
sign
she
of
had
her.
2 sisters.
She wouldn't
I
have
think
drawn
so,
a picture
yeah.
of her family without her. Would she? Wait, come to think of it, when was the last time I thought about Bellamina? She asked herself quietly. She remembered thinking about
Bellamina.
Octavia several times over the years, but she'd never thought about Bellamina. Oh my gosh! I must be the worst sister in the world! She said, feeling so rotten for having forgotten about her other sister. She tried to recall memories of her sister desperately, but the only thing that came to mind was the story of how she got her cutie mark. But beyond that, she shook her head furiously, trying to jog loose any memory. But she couldn't remember anything else. She looked down somberly before slamming a hoof against the ground. I'm so sorry, Bellamina. I promise you, once I get out of here, I'll keep you in my thoughts, Pinky said, determined now. She had to escape the horrors that had befallen Ponyville. She looked around the classroom, her eyes being drawn to the desk next to hers, the one Octavia had sat in during school. On the desk was a red circle with an X through it, written in with red marker. She carefully grabbed the edge of the desk and opened the top.
That's the symbol of the
looking
Slender
inside.
Man, I think.
Inside the
what?
desk was a blue jewel.
It's round circle with an X. I
carved
think it's
into
the symbol
shape
of the
a
Slender
contra
Man or
base.
Slender Pony.
Oh.
I always say
I'm
that.
not sure, but
Contra base. Wow. It's beautiful, Pinky gasped, examining the item. She wasn't sure what it was doing there, but it had the strong feeling that there was something she was meant to keep. She picked it up carefully before placing it gently into her bag. She closed Octavia's desk before realizing she should check her desk as well.
What was
She
it?
was careful not to disturb the picture and opened hers as well. Inside the red jewel was in the shape of a balloon. Inside was a red jewel in the shape of a balloon. She quickly placed it inside of her bag as well.
Just like her cutie mark.
She closed the desk and looked around. None of the other desks appeared to have anything of significance on them. She headed to the front of the class and checked the teacher's desk. There was a note written on the desk. At the eve of the switch, from night to morning, the red moon will shine. Another riddle?
Red
Pinky
moon.
asked out aloud to
the
no one.
eve of the switch.
This one
from
certainly
night
made
to
sense in the
morning,
last
the
riddle
red
she tried to
moon
solve.
shine.
Off the top of her head, she couldn't figure out what this riddle was trying to tell
Red
her.
moon.
At the eve of the switch, from night to morning, the red moon will shine. She twirled her head towards the door,
Raising
when she
of the
heard the
sun.
laughter of the foals coming from the hallway once more.
The raising
She
of the
quickly
sun.
exited the
Maybe
room and
they're
looked
talking
around the
about
hallway.
maybe sometimes when the
She saw them
sun
further down,
raises,
playing
the
with
moon
each other.
will
She slowly
interlock with it
approached
and
them,
become
trying to
red.
get a better look at the two little foals. However, once she got close enough,
I'm
they
trying
began
to
to run
figure
down
out the
the
riddle.
hallway.
I'll keep
Yeah.
They
thinking,
gave
but
chase. The little foals didn't run too far. They quickly made a turn into another room.
I'm usually good
Pinky
at
stopped in
riddles.
front of the door and read, Janitor's closet, on the front. She heard a click come from the door as if it had just been unlocked. She reached for the handle and opened it, walking into the closet. The room didn't look anything like a janitor's closet should. Rather than the shelves of items for cleaning, it was a mostly empty room. In the end, opposite the door, stood a small knee-high pedestal. Then behind it was what looked like a door with a clock and symbols around it, in between two portraits of the princesses. Oh, is that lantern oil? She said as she walked up to the small pedestal, noticing a small bottle of yellow liquid. She sniffed it real quick to confirm what it was before picking it up and placing it in her bag. Good. That should keep me stuck for a while. She then walked forward to take a closer look at the door. To the left of the door was a picture of Princess Luna, graciously drawn with her body in a circle, surrounding a small hole in the wall. Princess Celestia was drawn much the same way, also surrounding a small hole in the wall. Wait, this hole? I know this shape, she said, having noticed something about the hole Celestia was surrounding. She quickly reached into her bag and pulled out the red balloon jewel, and it fit gently into the hole. It snapped into place with a satisfying click. Now, Jake, when you're making this game, is this going to be like a direct walkthrough? Because I don't want to know what I'm supposed to do after reading this.
Yeah, me here. Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stay true to the Silent Hill series, it'd probably take a little more than just following a few ghosts around to know where to put the jewel. Like, in Origins, I was stuck on the asylum for
Dude,
God knows
so
how
was
long,
I.
trying to find those damn keys to the right door to open
push
the
me the fuck
library
off.
to get.
I was stuck on that for like 3 months.
It was
Really?
Pissed me off.
On what?
It was an asylum. You go into like an asylum and
But
you find the.
In Silent
You
Hill?
should change up
Yeah.
the game a little
And
bit.
I don't remember
if you
where you
could,
find
because I don't
what
wanna-
you're looking for, but I was stuck on it for so
I don't
long.
want this to be a
Just
direct
so
walk
pissed. Like,
to
Couldn't find it. Where the fuck was it?
But was Silent Hill a good game?
Yeah, it was.
The other jewel must
Let me ask you, was it as good as Skyrim?
She said, placing the blue contraband underneath Luna's picture. With the second jewel clicked into place, the clock moved forward,
about the same.
out of the door a little, followed by the symbols placed in a
Skyrim
circle
really
around
isn't
it.
a survival horror
She looked
game.
carefully at the symbols. There were
But
6
Silent
pictures,
Hill
3
is.
of suns,
Yeah.
1 red, 1 yellow, 1 blue, and 3 moons. 1 white, 1 green, and 1 red. Wait,
Red Moon.
clock and a moon. The words from the teacher's desk came to mind. The eve of the switch from night to morning. Night is PM, morning is AM. Switch at 12. And the
Midnight.
red moon. Oh, and the red moon will glow at that time. She placed her hand against the dial of symbols and turned it, placing the red moon so that it was directly above the number 12 on the clock. Then she moved the 2 hands of the clock to point to the number as well. The clock chimed 12 times as it and the dial moved back into the door. Before the door moved up and rose into the ceiling, opening the path. Pinky quickly walked into the next room. Huh? She said as her ear twitched. She heard a very quiet sound, like it was a sound coming from Ponyville itself. She recognized it as a siren. A siren was blaring in the distance. She wasn't sure what it meant, but she had the gut instinct that it didn't mean anything good. She focused on the room before her. She regretted it instantly. The room itself gave off the stench of it rotting. The ceiling was brown with missing tiles, the walls were a mess of peeling rotted walls, and the floor was covered in dirt, mold, and grime.
Ew.
Holes littered the room, filling a mesh of iron grating behind them. Apparently the foundation holding the room together.
You okay?
2 dead bodies hung from the corners of the room, their bodies wrapped in some kind of cloth, but their blood splattered the wall and floors next to them. They hung by chains and metal that kept them suspended. On the wall between them was a single word written in their blood. Run. She didn't need
Just
to be
like
told
Doctor
twice.
Who.
She ran
Run!
She ran out of the janitor's closet and back through the hallway. Wait, what happened to the light? She asked as the hallway she entered was pitch black.
Uh-oh.
She quickly reached into her bag and pulled out her lantern. The flame came to life, illuminating the hallway. She gasped as the hallway was no longer that of the calm and quiet schools, but instead was made of the same dilapidated materials as the room she had just escaped.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, now she's done it.
Done what?
Everything was rotting, held together by a metal grating. The grime covered the floor and splotches and blood caked the walls. Good! Oh, stop with the blood caking. Hanging bodies of ponies were visible in various intervals down the hall.
Yeah.
The smell of so much rotting gagged Pinky.
Yeah.
If not for the lantern in her mouth, she would have lost her stomach. The sound of static hit her ears next. Her heart started pounding as she heard footsteps echoing down the hall.
Uh-oh.
She turned to the direction of the footsteps, listening to the hiss of static grow louder as the footsteps grew closer.
Something's coming.
Her brain was screaming at her to run, listen to the wall, and put every force of the power into her hopes. But she seemed stuck, almost glued to the spot. This feeling wasn't like the other monsters. This sensation was piercing right down into her very soul. This feeling was biting into her and forcing her feet to stay. The edge of the light hit the creature. It walked further into the edge of her light, and she felt her heart stop for just a brief moment. It was the one of the monsters from her nightmare.
Come on, is it Slender Pony?
It was a tall, slender pony.
Yes,
that towered
it's Slender
over her.
Pony.
It had no face.
Get the fuck out of
Its
there.
skin clung to its face and body as if they were attached directly to its bone, with a pale, deathly pale, accentuated by a black suit and red tie it wore on its torso. It continued to take slow, careful steps towards her. Every hoof step echoed in her brain like it was trying to grate her mind. The phonograph erupted into its loud, high-pitched ringing as she felt a pain strike her mind. She finally felt herself no longer glued to the spot, and with every ounce of strength,
from what I've heard, the Slender Man does weird stuff. Like, I guess, yeah, it'll kill her.
Her heart jumped to her
sometimes it'll help
throat
you, sometimes it'll
and
kill
beat
you.
away a mile a minute as her hooves connected loudly with every single step she took. She didn't care about the grime or the body she passed. She had to get away. Her mind grated with the feeling of a haze that the creature seemed to bring with its presence. The loud ringing of the phonographs seemed to be the only thing that kept her in any state of mind to run as fast as she could. She rounded a corner with lightning speed. She was putting everything into this. She knew she could run fast. She could keep up with, if not outrun, Rainbow Dash at times. She had to be losing the Slender Pony. She had to be escaping. She dared to look over her shoulder. It was keeping up with her. It seemed to only be walking, Somehow, the slow-placed canter it strutted kept up,
Oh boy.
and this whole being seemed to slide towards her.
It's just
as if
like
there was
Michael
no
Myers.
escaping.
Yeah.
It walks.
Her mind reeled, and she whipped her head forward,
it
trying to
keeps
go
up with you.
faster. She had to turn another corner.
That's
Her
scary.
hoof caught under one
Maybe
of
because
the,
it knows
her
he'll
hoof caught under
eventually
one of
catch
her
her.
legs, and she nearly fell. She scrambled to her legs and took off again.
Scared
blood-curdling
the
scream
fucking
bellowed out
shit
the
out of
floor.
me.
What the hell was that?
God.
Half a white filly started to
I just called you jerk.
She jumped over it, its tongue passing over one of her hooves as
Terrified
it
me.
tried to bite her. The screams of the filly were cut short as she heard the sound of it being crushed by the monster chasing her. Oh! Yes! Slender Man 1, white strange filly baby shit, 0.
You mean Slender Pony.
Her stomach hit her heart inside of her throat as her lungs burned. Her mind was reeling, and the haze was growing. I can't escape, I can't escape, I can't escape, I can't escape, I can't escape! The words yelled and flung themselves to the very corners of her mind. She felt it. She was about to die. The monster was about to kill her, and there was nothing she could do about it.
What
Her
if
eyes
that,
flung
what if that
open
had
as
been
she
the
saw at
screech of
the
the
end
Slender
hallway
Pony?
an open door. An exit? Her mind screamed as she continued to book it. She raced as fast as she could,
Okay,
trying to
Air
ignore the
Space Class
constant
just,
looming
like,
presence
freaked
of
me
the
out.
threat behind her.
That
She
screech,
had to get to that
I was
door.
not
She
paying
was almost
attention.
there.
It scared
Just a
the shit
little
out of me.
closer.
Even
Just a
though I
little
was
closer.
listening to the
She was going
sights,
to
that
make it.
scared me.
She jumped,
I jumped.
passing straight through the open door and skidding to a halt inside of the room. Her heart instantly sank as she looked around. The room was a square with one entrance, no exit. She had jumped straight into a dead end with that monster behind her.
Uh-oh.
She looked around frantically. The room was adorned with party decorations. Multicolored streamers, balloons caked with blood, vile-looking snacks, poorly wrapped and rotting gifts, hanging ponies at every corner,
Fuck.
a seal of blood drawn out on
Yeah.
the floor. She instantly turned around, watching as the slender pony gradually walked into the room.
See,
The only
that's
opening
why
at
it
the room
walked.
sealed shut with an iron gate behind it. There was no escaping it now. She was trapped in the same room with this monster.
Oh boy.
She dropped the lantern from her mouth, no longer able to hold on to it as she panted frantically. The lantern rolled to the center of the room, turning itself upright in the center of the blood-drawn seal. The seal lit up with a red glow, filling the whole room with light. She could see the red-hued slender pony as it walked towards her. "Stay back!" she yelled as she ran to the gifts. She began grabbing them one by one and throwing them at the pony. The gifts struck the pony and seemed to stun him for a moment, but as the gifts hit him, they fell to the ground and burst into a pile of ash. They slowed his walk down for a moment, but soon they didn't even faze him. She grabbed the last gift and tossed it with all her might, straight at his head. It struck him before blowing up into a pile of ash. Pinky cried out in pain as she felt like her forehead was splitting open as her vision hazed into oblivion. She stomped her hooves down and ran blindly in a direction away from the pony. Her vision returned as she felt blood trickling down between her eyes, dripping off of her nose. He'd opened up a fresh wound in her head.
Ooh.
She grabbed the table holding the vile snacks on top of it and tossed it to the ground. She raised her legs up and with all her might she kicked the table straight at the slender pony. The whole table struck him and pushed him back. Oh. He hit the wall as the table seemed to hold him in place for a moment. Yeah! Pinky panted as she stared at the creature. He got up. He pushed the table gently, and the
Can't
table
she
fell
just
apart
kill
in
him?
a pile of ash.
I don't know.
Or is this guy immortal?
Oh,
I don't know.
Pinky's fucked. Pinky's legs gave way under her as she fell to her knees. Tears fell from her eyes as she sobbed in pain and exhaustion. She couldn't fight this monster. It was too much. Her mind reeled and wanted to accept her death. Her body couldn't take it. Her mind couldn't take it. She felt her mind begin to hurt worse. The slender pony was drawing closer. She couldn't look at him. She sobbed with her eyes closed shut, just wanting the horror to end once and for all. The pain stopped. The hoofsteps of the pony had stopped getting closer. The ringing of the phonograph was going down.
Did it vanish?
Vicky dared to open her eyes and looked up. He was still there, but he had stopped his assault on her. He looked like he was looking away from her. Something she couldn't see. That's when she heard it. The siren. The siren was going off again in the distance. The slender pony put one of his lifted hooves to the ground and turned to look at Pinky. She braced for whatever he was going to do, but he just stood there. Then, slowly, he lowered his head into his suit and pulled out a small brown box. He placed it on the ground before turning around and walking away from her. The light in the room dimmed until it was pitch black. Light from her lantern began to bring a gentle glow to the room. Pinky hiccuped, taking in a huge breath of air that burned her lungs again. She could feel her heart still racing at top speed as she began to get her bearings.
What the hell?
The room wasn't the one she had just been in.
Why did
Like a normal
he
basement.
stop?
It had pipes and fixtures that controlled water and heating throughout the building. Her lantern lay on its side in the middle of the room, glowing with its gentle flame. The brown box was
I thought
still where
that thing
the
was
slender
a
pony
killer.
had left.
I don't know that much
Words
about the Slender
failed
Pony.
Pinky.
Or man or
She
whatever.
didn't have the strength to get up at the moment. She lowered her head and let herself sob again. Okay, picking up the story a little bit.
That was
Okay,
interesting.
so that was the end of chapter 3. I don't know why the Slender Pony would just suddenly stop.
Who knows? I guess we'll find out. That was an interesting part 3, though.
Yeah, it was.
Like, Ace Guy, you scared the shit out of me.
With that
With
screech.
that screech.
It's like...
Walking out of me. I almost pissed my pants. Alright, so part 4 coming soon.
And we will see you when that time comes. Bye-bye.
Later.